Welcome to Epstein Unmasked, the first in our three-part series on the protection and collapse of one of the most disturbing criminal networks of our time. I'm your host, Cranky, and in this opening episode, we take a deep, unflinching look at the early years of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, the first criminal prosecution or investigation in Palm Beach, and the unprecedented collapse of the justice system that followed. However, before we dive into the show, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you the stories that others are too afraid to touch. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. This series is inspired in part by recent events, including the 2025 MAGA meltdown over the Justice Department's failure to publish the so-called Epstein client list. Many Americans, including prominent voices on the political right, believe that a cover-up is underway to protect powerful figures who may have been involved. That outrage, while politically charged, underscore a larger truth. Epstein's crimes were enabled by silence, secrecy, and systemic failure. It's a story not only about sexual exploitation, but more about wealth, influence, and legal manipulation created a wall of protection around a predator. Now let's think about this. What's the origin of the Epstein scandal, which focus on or it centers around power, grooming, and what I would call the first escape? The year is 2005. Let's go back. It's 2005, Palm Beach, Florida. A 14-year-old girl tells her parents a disturbing story. She was taken to a mansion by a high school friend, asked to give a massage to a rich man, and then sexually assaulted. She was paid $300. That man, Jeffrey Epstein, a mysterious, ultra-wealthy financier with deep ties to Wall Street, academia, and politics. He lived in a lavish mansion and a lavish lifestyle, hosted guests ranging from presidents to royalty. But beneath the surface was a dark network of child exploitation hidden in plain sight. You think P. Diddy's situation was bad? This is much worse because this is about kids, not about consenting adults. The girl's parents contacted the Palm Beach Police Department, and Police Chief Michael Ritter, to his credit, didn't back down. He opened a full-scale investigation. Not a small decision when the suspect is wealthy and well-connected. He discovered a pattern. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered something horrifying. This situation was not a one-time event. Girls as young as 13 were being recruited, often by other teens, to visit Epstein's mansion. They offer easy money for a massage. The result? Sexual abuse, exploitation, trauma. Over the next several months, police interviewed dozens of young women. Some were middle schoolers. Many came from broken homes, foster care, or financial insecurity, and what one would consider the perfect praise. By the end of 2006, at least 36 victims had come forward with credible, consistent accounts. Police in their investigation found call logs and phone records matching the victims' testimonies, discarded notes and appointment books from Epstein's trash, and surveillance logs from the mansion security system. However, justice is hard to achieve. Local prosecution stalls. When Chief Richter handed the case to Palm Beach State Attorney, Barry Krischer, things went sideways. Rather than pursue felony charges for sexual assault of minors, Krischer convened a grand jury, and from the overwhelming evidence, the grand jury returned one charge: solicitation of prostitution. And incredibly, unbelievably, it didn't even acknowledge that the girl, who was 14, was underage. This was not justice. This was evasion. Chief Ryder says this is not happening on my watch. He went federal because he was appalled. He did something which is rare. He bypassed his own prosecutor and went to the federal government. He contacted the FBI and the U.S. Attorney, Alexander Acosta, affectionately known as Alex. The FBI launched what they call Operation Leap Year, confirming the scope of abuse and compiling a 53-page federal indictment, one that could have sent Epstein to prison for life. But justice is hard to achieve because Epstein had something even more powerful than lawyers. He had the great connections. This is an excerpt from a Miami Herald article, which provides some detail in how the 2007, what is deemed, or what is called the Secret Non-Prosecution Agreement, or NPA, after months of backroom negotiations between Epstein's powerful elite legal team, including Alan Dershowitz, Kenneth Starr, and Jay Lefkowitz, with U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, who at one point became the United States Secretary of Labor under Donald Trump in his first term. This is the article, and I'll read it, the excerpt from the article. On a muggy October morning in 2007, Miami top federal prosecutor Alexander Acosta had a breakfast appointment with a former colleague, Washington, D.C. Attorney Jay Lefkowitz, who's part, as I mentioned before, part of the Epstein's elite legal team. It was an unusual meeting for the then 38-year-old prosecutor, a rising Republican star who had served in several White House posts before being named U.S. Attorney in Miami by President George Bush. Instead of meeting at the prosecutor's Miami headquarters, the two men, both with professional roots in the prestigious Washington law firm of Kirkland and Ellis, convened at the Marriott in West Palm Beach, about 70 miles away. For Lefkowitz, 44, a U.S. Special Envoy to North Korea and a corporate lawyer, the meeting was critical. His client, Palm Beach multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein, was 54 then, at the time, was accused of assembling a large cult-like network of underage girls with the help of young female recruiters to coerce into having sex behind the walls of his opulent waterfront mansion as often as 3 times a day, the town of Palm Beach police found. Jeffrey Epstein's waterfront beachfront home on El Brillo Way. In addition to his Palm Beach home, Epstein owns a residence in New York City and on a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Epstein has been accused of molesting hundreds of young girls in his homes. It goes on to further say the eccentric hedge fund manager, whose friends included President Bill Clinton, or former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, who was not president at the time, and Prince Andrew, was also suspected of trafficking minor girls, often from overseas, for sex parties at his other homes in Manhattan, New Mexico, and the Caribbean, FBI record shows. And they provided a sample of a 53-page indictment. It further went on to say Epstein could have ended up in federal prison for the rest of his life. But on the morning of the breakfast meeting, a deal was struck, an extraordinary plea agreement that would conceal the full extent of Epstein's crimes and the number of people involved. The article went on to say, not only would Epstein serve just 13 months in the county jail, but the deal, called a non-prosecution agreement, as I mentioned previously, essentially shut down an ongoing FBI probe into where there were more victims and other powerful people who took part in Epstein's sex crimes, according to the Miami Herald's examination of thousands of emails, court documents, and FBI records. The pact required Epstein to plead guilty to 2 prostitution charges in state court. Epstein and 4 of his accomplices named in the agreement received immunity from all federal criminal charges. But even more unusual, the deal included wording that granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators who were involved in Epstein's crimes. These accomplices or participants were not identified in the agreement, leaving it open to interpretation whether it possibly referred to other influential people who were having sex with underage girls at Epstein's various homes or on his plane. As part of the arrangement, Acosta agreed, despite a federal law to the contrary, that the deal would be kept from the victims. As a result, the non-prosecution agreement was sealed until after it was approved by the judge, thereby averting any chance that the girls or anyone else might show up in court and try to derail it. This is the story of how Epstein, who was bolstered by unlimited funds and represented by a powerful legal team, and those 3 lawyers are still around and doing well in whatever endeavor they pursue, was able to manipulate the criminal justice system and show how his accusers, still traumatized by their past, believed they were betrayed by the very prosecutors who pledged to protect them. One of the victims says, "I don't think anyone has been told the truth about what Jeffrey Epstein did." Michelle Licata, who was 30 at the time of the article, indicated this. She indicated, "He ruined my life and a lot of girls' lives." She wanted people to know that he was not prosecuted and that what truly happened never came out. If one was to summarize the deal that he had, all federal charges were dropped, granted immunity to Epstein and unnamed co-conspirators, and this was hidden from the victim, which was a direct violation, as I mentioned before, of the Crime Victim Rights Act. This 2008 sentencing is a mockery of justice. Instead of federal prison, Epstein pled guilty in Florida State Court to 2 charges: soliciting, prostitution, and procuring a minor. What was his sentence? 18 months in jail, of which he only served 13. Granted work release, so he left jail 6 days a week for 12 hours to work at his private office, had drivers and assistants to pick him up, and was housed in a private wing of the jail. He was in a country club. He did really no time. It's amazing. He even registered as a sex offender in the most minimal way with minimal supervision. Victims were kept in the dark. And this is the most damning part. Victims weren't even told that Epstein's plea deal had been reached. Some learned about it after it was released. This wasn't just a legal failure. It was a deliberate act of suppression. The system, swayed by wealth and power, abandoned the very people it was supposed to protect. Now, this is only part 1 of the 3-part series. In part 1, we uncovered how Jeffrey Epstein built a sophisticated system of child sex abuse, recruiting and exploiting at least 36 underage girls, some as young as 13, under the noses of law enforcement. We showed how prosecutors, instead of seeking justice, gave Epstein a sweetheart deal that not only allowed him to avoid serious prison time, but also granted immunity to his powerful co-conspirators, most of whom still walk free. We asked our question: what incentives or pressures were placed on U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta and others to abandon the federal case? What kind of system allows a predator with elite friends to walk away with a 13-month sentence and daily work release privileges? The same country that revisited the crimes of Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein years after they occurred can still pursue justice for Epstein's victims. These crimes are not ancient history. They are active failures. And here's the final thought to sit with as you go away. The current president of the United States was once a known associate of Jeffrey Epstein. The Justice Department, FBI, and federal courts now appear reluctant or perhaps unwilling to expose the full network. Digest that, folks. Please do. If the system protected Epstein then and protects allies now, who exactly is running this system? And who else is being protected? In part 2, we'll take you inside Epstein's 2019 arrest, his jailhouse death, and the suspicious failure surrounding the most high-profile prisoner in the world at that time. And in part 3, we'll confront the current MAGA meltdown and the growing belief that both political parties are covering up the truth about who was really involved. If you're angry, if you're disturbed, if you're concerned, if you're still asking, how could this happen? You are not alone. This is Epstein Unmasked. Stay tuned, subscribe, and share the truth.